Welcome to the January Community IT Innovators webinar. Thank you for joining us today to learn more about our IT resolutions for 2017. This is our first webinar in 2017. We thank you for joining us today, and we hope you'll come back for the rest of our webinar series this year. My name is Johan Hammerstrom. I'm the President and CEO of Community IT and the moderator for this series. We'd like to share a few webinar tips with you before we begin. Most importantly, we encourage you to interact with us by asking questions via the GoToWebinar chat feature. And this is even more important today than in most of our webinars because we hope for a very interactive webinar. We want to hear your feedback on our resolutions and hear about some of your IT resolutions for 2017. We'd also like to remind you to avoid multitasking during the webinar. You may just miss the best part. If you do happen to miss the best part, or if you need to leave the webinar early, we will be posting links to the recording and slides on our website, our YouTube channel, and our SlideShare account. If you're not familiar with Community IT, our skilled and certified team of IT professionals serves the Greater Washington nonprofit community, helping organizations of all sizes and capacities to advance their missions through the effective use of technology. We're deeply invested in the nonprofit community, having served over 1,000 nonprofits since 1993, and we take a strategic and collaborative approach that fits the unique needs and culture of nonprofit organizations. And now it's my pleasure to introduce and turn over to our blue ribbon panel of experts today. And I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. They're going to be sharing with us their IT resolutions for 2017.
My name is Steve Longenecker. I'm the Director of IT Consulting at Community IT, and I will be talking about infrastructure New Year's resolutions today.
My name is Matt Eshelman, the Chief Technology Officer at Community IT, and I'll be talking a little bit about security, which has been on my mind recently.
And I'm Johanny Torrico, Vice President of Operations for Community IT, and I'll be giving you some tips on how to be more productive using mainly Office 365.
All right. Thank you, Steve, Matt, and Johanny. So glad to have you with us today, and definitely looking forward to hearing about these resolutions. So we've divided up our resolutions into 3 categories. Sometimes it's helpful for us to think about managing IT operations in these 3 categories: infrastructure, security, and productivity. And so we're going to start with Steve, and he's going to tell us about his infrastructure resolutions for 2017.
Great. And I should preface this, I think this is true for all 3 of us, that my resolutions are, they're not random. They represent things that I see at clients and think about in my role at Community IT. But they are, in some ways, a sample of the many different resolutions. I mean, obviously this varies from our client to client, and for members of the audience who aren't our clients. You know, every network is different. Everybody's resolutions will obviously depend on their particular situation. One that I think I'm often asked to help clients spec out new desktops, and this isn't particularly in reference to desktops, although laptops as well, with docking stations. And one thing that I see over and over again is an underinvestment in monitors. Considering that people spend an awful lot of time looking at screens when they are computer users, it seems to me that having a monitor that's not, 4 or 5 years old, small, losing, the lighting on it is getting bad, or and there's not as much real estate. Monitors are relatively inexpensive investment, and getting a new computer is great. It means faster speed and hopefully increased productivity. But getting new monitors, I think, is important to employees' feelings about their computers as anything. And there's been studies about how extra screen real estate increases productivity. I'm a little bit on the extreme side, perhaps. I actually, when I hook up my laptop to my docking station, end up with 3 monitors. I'm generally just using 2 of them, although once in a while I have some stuff going on my 3rd one. But I have a hard time imagining being very productive with certain tasks, especially with just one monitor. So that's resolution number 1.
Real
The
quick
next
question.
resolution
Sorry
is
to
replace.
interrupt you.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Steve. A real quick question here. Is there a size of monitor that you recommend or a resolution?
Um, I think that that for most use cases, that like sort of the standard HD is fine. Like you don't, unless you're doing like you're in art, media or graphics or whatever, you don't need to go beyond whatever that standard specification is. And someone can, Matt, maybe you know, or Johanny, I can't remember the resolution, but this sort of like what your average monitor has uh, is fine. And as far as size, I mean, desk space matters, and then eyesight matters. So I personally appreciate 24-inch monitors, and you can go bigger, obviously. And I have some of our clients, I have like a woman at one of the clients I go to who actually is not legally blind, but really really appreciates like these giant 29-inch monitors that cost a lot of money because her eyesight is not good. But I think, from I'm 46 years old now, and I find I need reading glasses anyway, and I like having 24-inch monitor, which is as large as you can usually go without seeing a real big bump up in price. But for like a younger user who doesn't need um, doesn't need that because their eyes are still good. Then I think a 22-inch monitor saves some desk space and has just as much screen real estate in terms of pixels.
Great, thank you.
So then the next resolution is about replacing that 6-year-old network switch. Network switches sometimes get forgotten in sort of the the constant working on replacing and keeping things within a life cycle, and it's because we think of them as sort of just they keep running and running and running, and if they're not broken, then why fix them? Um, and and I think the reason that I put this down here is that, especially for sort of standard switches that aren't terribly expensive, it's well worth. I mean, even for expensive ones, this is important. But I mean, especially for the ones that aren't like high end, doing all sorts of VLANing and stuff. When a switch starts to go bad, it sometimes can just kill you in terms of troubleshooting and figuring out what's going on. I know that we've spent lots of time at certain clients trying to figure out why the network is not behaving the way we would expect it to, why certain things are slow, and the failures are intermittent and hard to troubleshoot, and it ends up that we ultimately are like, oh, let's replace that switch, and then everything gets better. So doing that proactively is just a really wise use of resources. We would basically say that once a switch is 5 years old, you should replace it proactively, just because it might not fail in year 6 or year 7, but if it starts to fail, it's going to be such a pain to notice, as compared to when a desktop hard drive fails. That's also painful, but at least you know it right away, generally. So that's that resolution. The next resolution is to retire that old RDP server, which is RDP stands for Remote Desktop Protocol, so this is sometimes called the old terminal server. This could be generalized to say that it's valuable to replace any old server. One guideline might be, that at this point, it'd be nice to get most of our server operating systems on Windows 2012 or newer. 2008 and 2008 R2 at this point are getting pretty long in the tooth. They're still supported by Microsoft, but getting in that frame of mind would be helpful. I specifically wanted to talk about terminal servers or RDP servers because I do think that we're seeing more and more cases where terminal servers are being hacked with brute force attacks, because they are oftentimes exposed, and Matt will talk about this in the security section, but they often are exposed to the internet just straight up. That basically these script kiddies robots can find these points of pain and attack them. The thing I'd say about this is that this is a point now where there's more and more, like, remote access is something that's really changing, and so thinking about other options like VPN, direct access. If you're moving a lot of your resources to the cloud, maybe you don't even need remote access to your network anymore, or you need it in a much more limited way, and an RDP server is not necessarily needed. So we're not talking about necessarily always replacing with a new terminal server. But if we are replacing with a new terminal server, I mean, we'll definitely benefit from a new operating system that's more like a Windows 10 user experience, and also much better security than the older operating systems have. Replacing the old printer without Windows 10 drivers. That resolution is some of these last two resolutions, this one and the next one. I'm sort of using rubrics to figure out when things should go away. Printers are something that you sort of can see. Especially some of these HP printers just keep on going and going and going forever. And as long as they keep going, it seems like, well, why swap them out? But when we're doing a network improvement project and we encounter a printer that we can't even find Windows 10 drivers for, or we have trouble finding 64-bit drivers for, it sort of brings the whole process to a halt. And so proactively saying, hey, this printer's been around forever. Let's get rid of it. Let's get a new printer in there. I think it's worth it. I think people end up seeing improvements in the quality of the printing, and probably actually given the way technology continues to advance, total cost of ownership goes down too, because the older printers probably are more expensive in terms of printer supplies and stuff. Although I'm talking without any data on that. But anyway, I think that's a good thing to do. Get rid of the printers that, if they don't have Windows 10 drivers, that's probably a clue that it's time to get a new printer there. And the last bullet point is of the same ilk. I would have said last year that we don't want to have any more XP desktops or laptops in our inventory, and I hope that's no longer a relevant resolution for anybody, because that's already been taken care of, because XP is no longer supported by Microsoft. So now the new rubric for me is, when I see 32-bit workstations, because you can certainly have Windows 7 32-bit, but there's no need for it anymore. Like there's really, maybe there's some legacy software that requires a 32-bit. I'm sure there is some, but I mean, in my experience, at this point, the world's a 64-bit world, and we should be running 64-bit operating systems. And when we encounter a 32-bit operating system, it probably means that that operating system is so old that, at the very least, we could reinstall it, reimage it, and we would reap the benefits. Because Windows does not age that well, and so even if you're keeping the hardware around, I'm almost certain the hardware is could handle a 64-bit operating system. It'd just be a matter of reinstalling. So that's my infrastructure stuff.
Good. Well, Steve, I might piggyback on that last recommendation to say, I think Windows 10 everywhere might be a good recommendation as well. I mean, I think we've certainly seen I think a lot of success in terms of the use and adoption of Windows 10. I think the anniversary update added some kind of better usability and user experience. And I think, again, if you are kind of a cloud native organization, particularly if you're in Office 365, the integration and capabilities that are available in Windows 10 just lend itself really well to kind of working in the cloud. And the user experience, I think, is pretty pleasant, and I think Microsoft is continuing to innovate and make improvements, and a lot of those are centered on how the operating system is updated.
Yeah, that's a more ambitious resolution, but it's a good one for sure. And I would totally echo that. My experience, the feedback I get from clients on the ground is generally, oh, I love Windows 10. Like it's a net positive by a long shot. There's not, I feel like, the experience of 8 and 8.1, not so much, and even maybe the first edition of Windows 10, maybe not so much. But at this point, I just get just total rave reviews from users when they get their Windows 10 machines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Great. Well, let's talk a little bit about, ostensibly security is, something that, I think we started off actually last year really strong with the Idealware security report that we co-sponsored and did a lot of work around, including a security playbook. I guess I must admit I thought that 2016 would really be the year that IT security would take off in the nonprofit sector, and I think we saw some attention and investment put into that, but I think it wasn't really until the end of the year when some of the high-profile breaches. It seems like there's more and more, but with the DNC and email being made public, that I think that did really hit home. I think there's probably not too many meetings that I'm in now where that lesson learned or that story is not being told as a way to say, look, security is important. We need to pay attention to this, because look what happened, and that's a meaningful story that gets told. I think the end result is that folks are paying more attention to security, and one of the things that I would like to see. It's really easy to do, and it's easy to implement, and it's affordable, is around single sign-on, and then also two-factor authentication. So this is maybe an evolution from moving away from the password manager. So password managers are great in terms of storing and kind of pre-filling in forms. They're still kind of keeping a copy of those credentials, and there's a lot of tools out there that are geared towards attacking those stored credentials. But if switching away and moving into single sign-on, instead of storing credentials, you're actually funneling those authentication requests in through a single source. So some of the common vendors are Okta, which actually has a 25 user-free donation to nonprofits. So they're kind of taking the Salesforce model and doing a 25 free user donation, one login, and then Microsoft's own Azure AD Premium, which is available at very low cost for nonprofits, can kind of give that capability. So single sign-on, I'm a huge fan of, and I think that coupled with two-factor authentication, means that you really kind of narrow down the surface area for being exposed to hackers. And I think then the benefit of is then you have more consolidated reporting and access. So beyond just having easy access to the systems you use, particularly in an organization or business environment, having some reporting or knowing when an account maybe has been compromised or when there's some access that doesn't look right, is a really beneficial, because you only know if there's a compromise if you've been alerted to it. So again, that single sign-on through a solution like Okta or OneLogin or Azure AD Premium, combined with two-factor authentication, are, I think, meaningful. They're not that hard to do, and we're seeing increased third-party vendor support for those solutions. So Office 365 is really easy to do single sign-on with. Google Apps is really easy to do single sign-on with. Box is really easy to do single sign-on with. Slack is really easy to do single sign-on with. So a lot of the core applications are really designed to have that integration, and this is kind of the way to leverage the power of the cloud is really provide a good authentication mechanism for your users. And again, the tools like the Google Authenticator, which a lot of these tools integrate with, or Microsoft's Authenticator, if you're in Office 365, make this, I think, a really achievable goal in 2017.
Hey Matt, can you just mention once again that first option that was free for nonprofits?
So Okta has a 25 user charity donation program. So we can I'll look up the link and we can send it out or tweet it out later. But that's something that they've made available recently. I mean, we have a couple clients that are taking advantage of it now, but I think it's something that they've released in the last couple of months. It's it's not something that's been around for a long time.
Great, thank you, Matt. I'll send that link out shortly.
Sure. Yeah, as Steve mentioned, shut down publicly available RDP. I mean, this is the source of many headaches. I think in the IT world, it's the tools and techniques that are available to attack publicly available RDP servers just continues to increase. And we have used the analogy, I think, in the past of kind of think of your network as your front door, and there's people walking by always kind of jiggling the handle to see if if the door is open. I think a better analogy is not maybe the front door of the house in the neighborhood that you may be thinking of, but the analogy is you have a door at Times Square, on New Year's Eve, and everybody wants to go to the bathroom, and it's not a couple people trying to check to see if it's open, but you have literally tens of thousands of login requests against your public resources all the time. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're seeing clients security logs be filled up within rolling over within a couple of days just because of the volume of requests, and it is very, very difficult to kind of shut the door on that. We are now talking about implementing or requiring access to put those resources behind a VPN, to put them behind a terminal server gateway, or some other way to basically it's no longer good enough to just kind of shut the front door. You really have to kind of barricade and block it and make it much more difficult for those brute force attacks to to occur. So
wouldn't you say that has just like, it feels like it's like an accelerating wave. I feel like even 3 months ago we were seeing it, but it's just crazy how it feels like, I don't know, like the hacker world has just been publishing a whole bunch of new scripts for it or something. I'm just amazing how it's accelerating at this point.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, I think there've been a couple of articles that have come out recently just about the the uptick in the the success of this, and again, I think the nature of hacking has fundamentally changed. Like, we're not talking about some pimply high school kid in his parents' basement kind of trying to see what kind of trouble he can get into, but we're talking about nation states. We're talking about criminally funded organizations where this is a money-making venture for one, and so there's a financial incentive to hack your network because then it can be used either to encrypt your files and ask for money, or use that as a botnet to kind of be packaged up and sold to others, or it's a information reconnaissance with motives around information gathering, and yeah, so the stakes are a lot higher, and just because you're a nonprofit organization that does good work, like, doesn't mean that you're immune from being a target. And if you are compromised, it's a big headache and it's expensive to really to fix and remediate. So information's an asset, and it needs to be protected as such. And so I think we're certainly feeling a lot of urgency around the RDP access for those reasons. I mean, the good news is, there's been a really, I think, big uptick in the availability of good security tools that are available to help guide people in terms of making good decisions. The one I highlight here is SecureScore. It's a resource it's for Office 365, and what Office 365, the SecureScore website, will do is basically scan your Office 365 tenant and then give you a rating, and then the rating is tied to meeting certain security requirements that you have in place in your organization. So there's things like, you get points for, how many members in your global administrator group, how many, do you require two-factor authentication, what are the other security, roles that you have in place, do you have, these, policy settings in place. And so I think it really is a good mix of, technical controls with some policy recommendations as well. So that's a free resource that Microsoft has made available, where you can go and plug in your Office 365 and information, run a scan, and then it'll actually baseline you, and then you can make changes and see how you change over time. So I think there's some good resources like that that are available for folks if you want to kind of get started. Google has their security some tools that kind of help you, verify and validate your security settings in terms of what's publicly available, and so on. So, the cloud, again, the benefit of the cloud is a lot of these tools are available and kind of included by the vendor. So I would certainly take a look at that, something that we're looking at how we're going to roll into our workflow. But I'm very interested in SecureScore, and I think Office 365 in general has created some good built-in security workflows. We're taking advantage of some in terms of reporting on login events, and whereas in the past we may have had to set up like a really exotic security management system, now because we're using Office 365, that login information and geolocation is kind of automatically collected and then reported, and I think it's meaningful, and it is a very practical thing to do in terms of taking a look at your security and being notified when there are issues. And then I think the big security control that I think that I'm looking forward to in 2017 is having a meaningful security framework that we can use, both internally and another way to talk to organizations, and that's using the SANS 20 critical security controls. We as having a long-standing relationship working with nonprofit organizations, I think we've had a good understanding of how security works, about the organizational culture, about how how things work, and how we can kind of nudge people along in terms of improving their security best practices. I think that's gotten us a good way, but at this point, I'm looking forward to kind of bringing in an industry standard for security policies, and then trying to marry that with relevant security controls for a nonprofit. So, security controls are only meaningful if people are going to pay attention to them and use them. And so, with any security initiative, it's great to have the technical constraints in place, but if somebody's going to click on a spear phishing email because it got delivered to them, that can circumvent a lot of security technology. So the SANS 20 critical security controls is like a good framework. It's kind of dry. It's very dry, but it does provide a great baseline and a reference point for improving security at an organization. And I think then that kind of leads to the next generation endpoint protection. We've been saying for a long time that antivirus is basically ineffective. It catches 50% of 50% of the threats, and but there hasn't been a really great option. We've been fortunate enough to now partner with CrowdStrike. So CrowdStrike is a vendor actually that the DNC brought in to kind of clean up the mess after they were compromised. So we are a CrowdStrike partner, and we're using it to protect our network and can provide some support for our clients as well. And it's phenomenal. I mean, it is able to block and prevent crypto attacks in progress, and we have seen that in action. And it is, it really is amazing stuff. And there's a significant price. Well, I don't know, significant price premium, but it's it's more expensive than traditional antivirus, but the capabilities of it are pretty amazing. So CrowdStrike is one of the lead players in this new realm. There's a lot of other folks in there. We've been impressed with them. They have been able to do some donations for nonprofit organizations that we've been able to kind of help facilitate. So yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in this kind of next generation beyond antivirus solution as a way to help kind of keep one step ahead of all of the bad stuff that's out there. Great. Well, I think I've chatted quite a bit, so I'm happy to answer any questions as they come up. But I want to turn it over to Johanni so she can talk about productivity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Very interesting stuff there. So I think I'm here to talk about productivity and give you some tips for 2017 and how to kind of best utilize, especially the Office 365. And if you're not in Office 365, why You should look into that. But before I start, I think that we can all agree that cloud computing has had a big effect on how we work. And we have, great tools to be more productive. An example of that is, Office 365, but we have other ones out there with Google or Dropbox. So my 5 resolutions that I've listed here are mainly around Office 365, and with a non-profit pricing, I think that makes sense. So the first thing I will talk about is kind of, upgrading to Office 2016. And so why do we want to do that? Well, and especially if your documents are safe in OneDrive, or SharePoint in the cloud. Office 2016 integrates seamlessly with Office 365 with the different components. You can take advantage of real-time collaboration, co-authoring, and all of that good stuff. If you're a Mac user like me, Office for Mac is great. There have been some big improvements made to the Office for Mac suite. And if you're a nonprofit, the license for Office 2016, if you want to buy the standalone license through TechSoup, for example, it's not expensive. It's cheap. And in addition, if you have Office 365, you can actually add, have an add-on to Office 2016 through your subscription. And that will allow you to use, that Office license to 5 different devices. And I think that costs $2 per user per month. And, overall, it's a good practice to keep up with, up-to-date applications and for security reasons, obviously. So that's kind of my, the Office 2016. The next resolution in terms of productivity, it's kind of use more of the Office 365 component. And so Office 365 is a full productivity suite. We mainly use 10% or 20% of the platform, and mainly, for our clients, they're mainly using Exchange Online or the email piece of Office 365. And so the rest of the components are kind of, sitting there and forgotten. And with the Office 365 umbrella, you have lots of productivity applications that, can be beneficial for your organization, like, OneDrive for Business. You have SharePoint, Skype for Business is now available. Then you have, other things like Planner. They have added Planner, Delve, Microsoft Flow, Groups, Teams, and they keep adding more stuff. It is a long list of applications that you're presented with, and that's typical Microsoft, right? But I would say to start, I would focus maybe or recommend that, you take a look at OneDrive for Business and SharePoint. Skype for Business is another one, and Delve. I think those are kind of the 3 main ones that could actually, definitely make a big difference in your productivity and your organization's productivity. If you're already using email, I encourage you to kind of start moving your documents from kind of your personal, Google Drive or Dropbox to your OneDrive for Business. And if you are the owner of IT in your organization, transitioning your users to OneDrive for Business is definitely a plus. And it's a way to cut on that shadow IT. So, if you don't open access to OneDrive for Business on Office 365, for example, your users are looking for a way to share their documents, because attaching the documents it's a pain. And so they might be using their Google Drive or their Dropbox. So, kind of looking into OneDrive for Business to kind of mitigate that shadow IT. It's a big, it might be beneficial for you, and I would say it's something that you might consider focusing on 2017. And also, OneDrive for Business has the applications run across devices too, so that makes it easier. So if you have a mix of Windows and and Macs, that's no longer kind of a roadblock, because applications have gotten a lot better across devices. So that's one for OneDrive for Business. The other one is Skype for Business. Skype for Business, it's a great, it's an Office 365 unified communication tool. And it lets you kind of schedule meetings, make calls, and also kind of give you a platform for like chat or instant messaging with your organization. And I'll talk more about kind of how all of them integrate together, and I'll give you little tips for how to kind of get the most out of a Skype for Business and later on. Lastly, I'm one that, Office 365 gives you an application called Delph, and Delph, if you don't know what it is, it's basically, Delph's job is basically to be a smart interface to the search engine. So if you have, documents in Office 365 that in OneDrive for Business or SharePoint libraries, and you have permissions to those documents, Delph will actually present those documents to you, kind of on a clean interface, and you can discover documents to search quickly and see what people on your team or on your organization are working on. And as long as you have permissions to those documents, you can actually see all of those updated copies. So it's really cool. If you haven't seen it and you're already using OneDrive, I encourage you to take a look and see what Delph can do for you. There are other available applications, like I mentioned, are kind of Planner. Planner is a work management application, and it's there to let you kind of organize your projects. And then Flow, it's another one that that it's new, and it requires a little bit more of a technical skills. It lets you create workflows where you can, for example, get notifications on a document that you have, share with people in your organization, and somebody needs to approve that document or need to publish it, and you want to know when that document is published. But you can create a flow a rule that will notify you by email when that document has been published. So and actually Microsoft provides you with a guide on different flow and templates on how to do how to create those workflow rules. And it's and they're trying to make it simple. So that's use more of the Office 365 applications. Next, leverage Office 2016 and the integration. So I think one big win for Microsoft is kind of the great integration that they have been able to create between all the Microsoft productivity applications, and it is really an integration that creates great efficiency. Some quick examples of the features that I really like are, like when you want to schedule a meeting, if you're using Skype for Business, for example, you can schedule a meeting right there from Skype for Business, and Outlook will just throw you an invite just with one click, and then you can just enter the people that you want to invite. Or if you're starting that from a Skype for Business group, you will include that group there, the link for the meeting, and then you can also add OneNote there for people to actually share meeting minutes, for example. So one click or two and everything is combined, and I think that's kind of the beauty of that integration among the different components of Office 365. Another one that I like is kind of, from Outlook, you can see individuals' presence. So if you're, if you are replying to an email and you don't want to reply to the email and you see that the person is actually available, you can just click the chat button right in Outlook, and and then the chat window for Skype for Business will pop up, and then instead of replying to that email, you can just continue the thread conversation through chat. So that, I think that's great, and that's something that actually I'm gonna try to do myself more often. Then you can, another thing that I really like also is kind of the integration with the sharing. Before we had to rely on Outlook to, attach documents and then share those documents that way. And right now, just with a click on the share button on the Office 2016 applications, being Word or PowerPoint, you can just share, your documents from right there and then send the link without even, getting out of your Office application or the Word document that you're working on. And lastly, something that I really, really appreciate is clutter. I don't know if you have seen, but with Office 2016, there's a feature in Outlook 2016, I'm sorry, called clutter, and that separates important emails from unimportant ones, and it actually reduces the noise from emails. So if you haven't turned that on, or if you haven't seen it, take a look. And clutter is smart. It actually learns to be more effective over time based on which messages you move out of the clutter back to your inbox and which emails you delete from your inbox. So that's it for the integration. Now, collaboration with OneDrive, Skype, and more, and then the mobile Office 365 apps. Collaboration is a big part of the productivity nowadays. So, these days you have people working remotely from home from other states. Certainly at Community IT, we have people working from California, from Texas, from all over the place, and we have a lot of, a lot of remote meetings. So I would say you can use, Skype for Business to set up remote meetings, and from that application share your documents from OneDrive or SharePoint library. You can leverage the chat on Skype for Business to instance message your team and cut down on those long email threads. If you need to share your screen also, often when you're presenting or you're actually having those remote meetings, you have to share your screen. Skype for Business can actually do that too. And again, I'm just mentioning Skype for Business, but there are other tools out there like GoToMeeting and Google Hangouts, I think, that also can provide some of these. But if you're in Office 365 already, then Skype for Business to collaborate is definitely a non-brainer. Another one is the real-time collaboration, like co-editing, versioning. So the times when we had to send attachments, save different versions on your file servers, they're a thing of the past now with the cloud. So using the Office Online makes it much easier to collaborate in real time, and from anywhere too. You have, like I mentioned earlier, Microsoft have definitely come up, have invested a lot on their applications and to use them across devices. So you can, if you have a Mac or if you're working on your mobile device, you can use your Office Online web apps and, and do the co-authoring and the collaboration real time. And again, it's Google Docs also kind of have that real-time collaboration. Another one is team collaboration, and things you see Slack or Teamwork or even Google Groups doing to help manage kind of your projects or your group tasks. Now Office 365 or Microsoft is actually kind of trying to compete with that and give you kind of the tools that do kind of the same thing. They're launching groups and teams, and they are kind of competing with the functionality of Slack and Teamwork. Something that I'm also curious about, and it's probably, I think Office 365 Teams is being launched this quarter, and they're gonna integrate it with Office 365. So that's something definitely at least I wanna kind of see what's what they have to offer. And again, finally, with the improvements kind of made to Office 365 mobile apps to run them across platforms, I am definitely going to kind of start downloading these mobile apps on my Android phone, my iPad, my Mac, and start using them. I mean, OneDrive for Business has been available for Macs for a while, but the new client runs extra well, and the sync doesn't break anymore. It doesn't crash like before, so it is definitely more reliable. So if you have a Mac and you're using OneDrive and you're just relying on the cloud, I would suggest to kind of install Office, the application, and give it a test. The same thing with Skype for Business. The beta now is on production for Mac as well. So I've been testing it and it's great. The interface is much richer than what you got with Link. And Office apps along with Skype for Business, OneDrive for Business, and the SharePoint app are all available to run actually on iPad. So like I said, I'm gonna download that and start using on my iPad and also on Android devices. One thing that I recently started doing is I have retired my mail client on my Android phone, and I'm using the Outlook app. It works excellent. It worked much better than the mail client from the Android. And I can see my calendar right from that mobile app, and I can see the freebie when I'm scheduling meetings. So I would say that Microsoft has scored a win on these mobile apps. And it's if you haven't had a chance to kind of see the latest, definitely encourage you to go ahead and install those and give them a test. I have talked a lot about kind of different tips throughout my time here. One big resource that I would recommend for you is just Google Office 365 Training Center, and they have a whole variety of videos, like 5-minute videos on how to use their mobile apps on Androids, Macs, and Windows. So if if you're curious about any of the things that I mentioned today, go to that training center, and you can get a peek on what I was talking about. That's it for my resolutions.
All right. Thank you so much, Johanny. And I can attest personally to both the just how well Clutter works. Within like a week or two of me enabling Clutter, all those alerts that I get from LinkedIn, they all go into Clutter. I didn't have to set it up. It just somehow knew that I didn't want to be bothered with those. So it works amazingly well. And I can also vouch for the Outlook mobile app on iOS. I started using that in the last month or so, and it works so well that I basically stopped using the native mail app on iOS for my work email, which I never thought I would do because it works very well. But the Outlook mobile app works even better. It's very impressive. So thank you all for your resolutions. It's a lot to think about as we head into 2017, but we really feel that if you're able to accomplish some or all of these, it's really going to help your organization with its use of IT. It'll help you kind of stabilize your infrastructure. It'll help you improve your security, and it will hopefully help you and your staff to be more productive. So I will open it up to any additional questions. We've been answering questions throughout. Actually, yeah, if you could go back one slide, let me take a quick minute to promote next month's webinar. So we do a lot here with IT operations and infrastructure support. But there's a whole nother world of IT around information management and data strategy that's really essential for organizations looking to get the most out of their information technology. And so next month, we're very pleased to welcome Peter Miras and Kyle Haynes, partners at Build Consulting, which is a consulting firm that specializes in information strategy and data management. And they're going to be joining us for a basics webinar. We're really going to go over the basics for you to start thinking about how to manage your information more effectively. So please join us next month for that. That's going to be on, as always, the third Thursday of the month, February 16th from 4 to 5 p.m. So let's finish up here with we've got a few minutes for any discussion, any additional questions that you might have had that we didn't get a chance to answer, or if you have a New Year's resolution that you think is important that we didn't cover, we'd love to hear from you. So we'll give folks a minute or two here in case there's anything else out there. And it struck me in hearing you all speak about our resolutions, the way in which they really all kind of work together. They're all sort of, they're interrelated, right? And so some of the things that Steve mentioned with improving the infrastructure also help with improving your security posture. I know that switching over to the Office apps on your mobile phone, which Johanny mentioned, is not only a productivity gain, but you can secure those Office apps with a PIN code or with your thumbprint. And so you're actually improving your mobile device security. And there's a whole kind of realm of additional security and productivity improvements that you can realize if you start to implement some of these resolutions that we talked about today. All right. So we did have a question about tools for managing social marketing, and unfortunately that's a little bit outside of the scope of our resolutions. That is something that actually will probably be discussed and addressed on some level next month. That's something that our partners at Build Consulting focus on a little bit more. So we'll try to address that next month. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We're really happy to have you here, and we look forward to you joining us throughout 2017 for our monthly webinar series. And we will probably be creating some blog posts in the next few weeks around these resolutions, and we'll be sharing them, in that form, as well as posting this recording and our slideshow. So we wish you all the best in the coming month and look forward to your joining us next month in February. Take care.